Right now, an incredibly intense confrontation is unfolding in Iran. It's put the entire nation on edge, and really, it has the whole world watching. Today, we're going to break down exactly what's going on in this critical uprising.
And that really is the core question here, isn't it? What happens when you have a population that is absolutely determined to see change, running straight into a government that refuses to give an inch? This isn't just a hypothetical. It's the reality playing out on the streets of Iran right now.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll set the scene, a nation at its breaking point. Then, we'll look at the two sides of this fight, the defiance of the people and the regime's iron fist response. We'll also touch on how the rest of the world is reacting, and finally, we'll see how this all leads to a really tense, unyielding standoff.
Okay, so let's dive right in. The situation on the ground is, to put it mildly, incredibly tense. We're talking about widespread civil unrest that has just swept across the entire country. It's a moment of real conflict and, honestly, a whole lot of uncertainty.
And we've got to be really clear about this. This is way more than just a simple protest. The sources we're looking at call it a significant confrontation. It's a fundamental clash of wills. On one side, you've got citizens who are demanding huge political change, and on the other, a government that's just digging in its heels, completely refusing to give up any power.
So, let's take a closer look at that first side of the confrontation, the people. Citizens are hitting the streets in this just powerful display of defiance. They're making their demands for change absolutely impossible to ignore.
So what does that defiance actually look like? Well, we're seeing these massive demonstrations, huge numbers of people from all walks of life, and their goal is crystal clear. They want fundamental political transformation. And they're being smart about it too, targeting really critical economic and political hubs to have the biggest possible impact.
And get this, the protests have even reached a city called Mashhad. Now, why is that such a big deal? Because it's the supreme leader's own birthplace. For protesters to show up there, well, that sends an incredibly personal, direct message right to the heart of the regime. That level of defiance is something we just haven't seen before.
Now, for every action, there's a reaction, right? Let's flip the coin and look at the other side of this standoff, the regime. Its response has been fast, it's been organized, and it's been incredibly severe. They're meeting the people's defiance with, well, an iron fist.
And the human cost of this crackdown is just devastating. Human rights groups are reporting dozens of deaths, and what makes it even more tragic is that this number includes several children. This isn't just a number, it's a lethal response designed to absolutely crush dissent.
One of the regime's main tactics here is the nationwide internet blackout. And it's a move that does two things. First, it makes it incredibly difficult for protesters to communicate and organize. And second, it tries to hide the evidence of the violent crackdown from the rest of the world. It's a tool for both control and concealment.
So how does the regime justify all of this? Well, this quote from the supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, tells you everything you need to know. He dismisses the protesters as vandals. That one word, it shows a complete refusal to even acknowledge their demands are legitimate. It frames them as criminals, not as citizens who are fighting for their rights.
A crisis this big, it doesn't happen in a vacuum. The international community is watching all of this very, very closely, and some pretty powerful players are starting to issue some serious warnings. The most direct statement we've seen has come from the United States. President Donald Trump has put the Iranian government on notice, threatening what he called severe retaliatory measures if the crackdown on protesters continues. So now you have this layer of external pressure on top of an already explosive internal situation.
So, all of this brings us to where we are now. And what you have is this unyielding standoff, with two powerful forces just locked in a determined head-to-head opposition.
It really breaks down like this. On one side, you have a determined, defiant population demanding total transformation. And on the other, you have an unyielding, dismissive regime that is absolutely refusing to concede anything. The key thing to understand is that these two positions they're just completely incompatible. There's really no middle ground in sight.
And so that leads us to the final and most critical question. It's like that old saying, what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object? With both sides completely refusing to back down, something's got to give. So what is the breaking point?